first of all, obviously it's a bit of a left field one, but you're I presume you're from Wallsend, aren't you?
Yeah, sort of that area. It's actually like just outside of Wallsend, called like Walker. But yeah, I'm 600 meters from Wallsend. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Well, I mean, when you think of Wallsend, you probably think of, well, I think of football, as in like the
Yeah.
Wallsend Boys Club. So,
Yeah.
how what sort of introduced you to athletics, and what was your sort of early steps in the sport?
Well, speaking of Wallsend Boys Club, it was actually them that got me into running. So at the time, I was playing for them at around under 8s, I think it was. Yeah, under 8s, under 10s. I was at Wallsend Boys Club, and I did the junior Great North run for charity as part of the club, but I only did it by chance. So there's a lad that was on my team, and he was doing it, and he was ill on the day, and said, "Do you want to use my number and go and do it?" And I said, "Yeah, I will do." And I just fell in. I loved it when I did that race, and then after that, I did it for a few more years, just doing it for charity for my football team. And then eventually I went and joined a club in Wallsend Harriers was the nearest club, so that's where I went to.
And what was it that you enjoyed about it? Was it being good at it, or?
No, at the time I was in the hundreds in that junior run. It wasn't necessarily. I didn't do too well. It was just I think it was just the competitive feel that you got from it. Yeah, just racing against people your age and stuff like that. Yeah, I just really enjoyed it. So yeah, it was good.
And what position did you play when you were playing football?
So when I was younger, I played on the wing, but surprisingly, I wasn't very quick at all. I was very slow. Yeah, I'm not too sure why. I had always had really good endurance, but my speed was like I was always one of the slowest on my team. But then as I got older, I think managers started to pick up on that lack of speed, and then I started playing midfield. But then I just had that engine where I just got backwards and forwards all game long, and yeah, that was my best position, definitely in the midfield.
Yeah, you kind of like with you associate Newcastle a lot with football, but I mean you also associate it quite a bit with, well, the North East generally, with like pretty big people in the history of athletics in terms of like Graham, Foster. I mean, what I find really interesting is that you sort of had that real like great era in the Northeast in the 80s, and now it seems like it's starting to kick on again. Sort of these years, you've got you, Rory, Leonard, Callum Johnson, and then Laura Waitman.
Yeah.
So is that something that you take a decent amount of pride, sort of representing the Northeast on a sort of national level?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, there's some great guys in the Northeast that have helped us, and that they're all sort of the similar people that have helped me, Rory, Carl, Laura, that helped us get to the level that we're at. And yeah, it's a really good feeling when we get to represent them guys, because they're the ones that have pushed us up to that top level, and just believed in us when selecting for teams, whether it's to represent the North East, it's inter-counties or Northumberland schools or whatever. Just yeah, it was. They just looked after us really well, and gave us that belief that we could go and achieve something. And yeah, I think there was quite a few years where, like you say, that there was a gap in sort of the talent from the Northeast. I'm not really sure what that was down to, but yeah, looking at some of the athletes in the younger age groups that I've seen that are coming through now, it looks like there's just an influx of talent coming through, and the Northeast are back on the map again.
So like your early days, I take it when you just went down to Wallsend for sort of the first time, and you were just sort of getting to know the sport. And at what point did you start sort of training elsewhere, just not just at Wallsend, or did you always do that straight until when you went to uni?
So to begin with, when I joined Wallsend, it was actually really to just improve my endurance for my football, and then I'd just go to a session on a Tuesday and a session on a Friday. But it wasn't like every week I would be going. It would always depend on when my football training sessions were, because they used to change all the time, and then there'd be times where I'd go months without going to the club and stuff like that. So it wasn't for a long time, probably until I was about 14, 15. I didn't really. It wasn't like set in stone every week. I would go to running. But then it was. I think it was the junior run when I came ninth. I can't remember which year that was. I think it might be in 2016. I came ninth. And that was sort of the first time. So like ninth, it's not like amazing, but it was like that was the first time I'd really got into, I think, the top 50 or anything like that. And Paddy Dinsmore, my coach at Wallsend, he sort of saw that potential in us once I did that, and then he's then started setting us a bit of a plan where I'll do some runs outside of the club and stuff like that, and then it just sort of went from there.
So what was that ninth in? Was that junior Great North Run? Or
Yeah.
Nice. Is that a way that a lot of athletes in the North East kind of get introduced to running?
Yeah, I think so. Because obviously the Great North Run is just such a huge spectacle in the country, never mind just the North East, and it's sort of a tradition for a lot of families to take part in it, and everyone knows about it. I mean, obviously in my opinion, they've ruined it with the city games being moved to Stockton now, and because honestly, that Saturday where you'd have the long jump and the sprints all on the quayside, it was just a phenomenal day, and it's a real shame that it's moved, because I think I've watched on the TV, and there's nowhere near the fans that was like that attended the quayside. So it is a real shame, but I think a lot of like junior athletes in the North East do tend to do that race, and I think there's probably a few like me who sort of found that love of athletics from that.
Was that the race where you kind of felt you should take it a bit more seriously, or like is that when you realised that you were pretty decent at it?
Yeah, I would say so. It was. I crossed the line and I was told I came ninth. It was like, oh wow, that's like compared to last year where I was, I don't know, maybe in the 60s, it might even be in the hundreds. It was like that was a big deal to us at the time, and a bit of a surprise really, because before then I hadn't really been doing any different training to what I'd been doing the years before. I'd obviously just got maybe a bit older, a bit taller, a bit stronger potentially, and then I'd then just sort of got a bit quicker. So it was just a bit of a surprise, but then that was where I then sort of kicked on and started training properly.
Nice. And then I noticed that next year you were second in the northeastern counties. You came 126th in English schools, which, well, I suppose, like looking back in hindsight, will probably feel quite low, but at the time, was that this performance that you were kind of like, oh, that's a decent performance?
Yeah, so the counties I wasn't really expecting, and then the English schools, everything just sort of went so quick that season. Like I just progressed so quick, where every race was just, it was then I'd qualified for another race, and I was like, I didn't even know this existed, and then onto another one, then onto English schools, and at the time I didn't really have a clue how big a deal English schools actually was. But then, like, I think 126, was it 126 you said? Yeah. At the time, I was over the moon of that, because it was the way it was sort of told to me was, you're 126 in the country for your age. So to me at the time, that sounded like a huge deal, and it still is to be in that sort of number of people in the country, because there's thousands of kids that go out and go to their school events and stuff. It is a big deal to get into that sort of number. So it was it was quite exciting at the time.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, like those school championships are more competitive than the senior
Yeah.
nationals, because everyone goes, don't they?
Yeah, definitely.
I'm just looking where you came the next year. So you came fourth. Right. I don't think you didn't do English schools, but you did English national. You came 46th.
Yeah, that was that was at Portman Hill, that one in 2017,
18, yeah.
2018. I think I was actually quite ill the week leading up to that, and I had all my train tickets booked to go down with the Wallsend team, and I was really excited. And Paddy said, "Look, just if you really want to do it, just go and like jog it." But obviously, there's that competitive sort of side in you where I think I started off sort of just taking it a bit easy, but then I got halfway through and I was like, I've just got to push through it, and then I got into 46, which wasn't as bad as I sort of expected going into it, and then I think it was the 2 weeks after that, I think I was 10th in the counties.
I mean, it looked like, to be honest, that 46th was probably your worst result all season.
Yeah.
It's looking like you came second in Siab. You won the Northeastern counties. You did do English schools. You came sixth. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was my first England schools vest. Yeah. I went from 126th the year before to 6th. Yeah. It was quite a steep progression.
How did that feel? Was that did you suddenly feel like you could mix it with the top guys, or did you not really know who the top guys were if that was your first English schools before?
No, I didn't really know who anybody was. I was just sort of a novice to it all. It was. I think it's just one of those where my fitness was just obviously improving all the time, and I didn't really know how to run tactically. I just ran as hard as I could from the start, and then as I was sort of progressing, I was then just getting closer and closer to the front of races without us really noticing myself doing anything different. It was just everything just sort of like it just increased so fast, and then by that time I was then mixing up at the top end of races, and then obviously I came 10th for that in the counties, which I just couldn't believe. And then everyone was then that week there was then huge pressure, because then I was getting messages saying, "Oh, you can make this England team." I was like, I didn't really even know that you could get an England vest from that sort of race before it, and so it was it was a very weird time that.
At what point did that become an ambition, getting a national vest or an GB vest?
So probably after that in the counties race, I think a lot of the guys in the northeast said that Bill McGurk is a hero in the northeast. He refounded Wallsend, and he's been the chairman of the English National Cross Country Association and stuff like that. And so he's a big supporter of mine, and he looks out for us. And he said to us after that was your breakthrough race, and then he started telling us all the things that I could then go on to and what have you. So that was sort of that was sort of when I first realised that I could potentially do it. So I think in that race it didn't count. I was bottom age under 17, and I was actually second out of the bottom age runners. So it was like I had a very good chance of getting an English schools vest that next week. So it was probably then.
Did that ever feel like a lot of pressure, or was it always more of an opportunity?
Yeah, it was always more of an opportunity at the time. It wasn't really until the year after when I started feeling pressure on myself. I think, at that time everything was just moving so quick. You just couldn't really get lost in all that sort of expectation and what people thought. You just sort of just racing all the time. And I think I was at the time I still felt quite young, so I don't really think I realised what was going on around me as much either, as much as I would do now, or even just the year after that. It was just opportunities just kept just kept arising, and I'll just take them whenever I got them.
So you said the year after you did start to feel a little bit of pressure. Do you feel pressure, or do you feel you're quite good at managing that? Or?
Yeah, I've always felt I'm quite good at managing. There has been odd times where I felt the expectations maybe been too high on me potentially, which has maybe affected some races. But yeah, other than that, it's sort of it hasn't been too bad. I think I've managed it pretty well. So
yeah. Going back to Wallsend a little bit, when you do wear your sort of Wallsend vest,
yeah,
on a national level, do you take a lot of pride in that?
Yeah, a lot. Like every race I can do to wear my Wallsend vest, I will definitely always wear it. Like even doing the Abbey Dash, and I know Andy Henderson might tell us off for saying this, but when I ran the Abbey Dash the other month in my Beckett vest, because I was running for the Beckett team, I was a little bit annoyed because I just love running in my green and gold vest. Take a lot of pride from it. So yeah, whenever I get the opportunity to, I'll always do. And looking forward to getting it on next Saturday in the national.
Oh yeah, I did notice your name was on the list.
Yeah.
So that's the under-20s, isn't it?
Yeah. So last year under 20s. So yeah, before going up to the long race, which I'm not looking forward to.
Yeah, I've one of my friends did a recce of the course the other day, and they said 15s might not even cut it. To be honest, it's yeah. Does that suit you, or?
It used to. I feel like I've sort of got it in my head now that I struggle in mud, which is weird because of some of the races that I've won, the English schools, in the counties, or some of the muddiest cross country courses that I've been told there's been, and I don't know what it is, but I just really struggle to get through it nowadays. Like the Bucks the other week came 14th, and I was a bit disappointed with that. I felt I should have been in and around that top end. So yeah, it was, and that was a very muddy course. So I'm not sure what it is. I need to fix that, because in the past I have done it. I just need to refigure it out.
Yeah, you never know though. It's like if you say you had a bad race at Bucks, it's like probably almost makes you like respect the mud a bit more, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Good luck for that. I won't ask you for any predictions or anything like that. Yeah. So you kind of touched on it a bit with Andy Henderson there. Are you coached by Andy, or do you?
No, so I'm coached by Helen. Andy's just like the uni coach. But we'll work together quite a lot. Obviously there's the Leeds talent up here. So Andy, Helen, Andy Drake, Ian Mitchell, they're sort of the guys that run it at the university. Well, Helen did run it at the university. She's just left just last month. So yeah, they all work together. Like actual sessions, like track sessions and what have you, we tend to keep them the same, but then it's just Helen has her own spin on it. And so yeah, when I first came into the university, I think Hendo's got so many athletes, it was just sort of about giving, like, sort of spreading it out so he didn't have as much of a load. So yeah, it's worked really well, and Helen's amazing. I couldn't thank her enough for what she's done for us so far, being coached by her. But yeah, it's been really good.
Does she have much of a like coaching philosophy, or would you say it's just tailored to each athlete?
Yeah, it's probably tailored to each athlete, I'd say. She's very individualized. She gives a hell of a lot of time to each athlete that she coaches. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say she's got any sort of philosophy, but what I would say is she's very keen to learn. Obviously, she's quite a new coach to the game, but she doesn't have a big ego at all. She's not afraid to take advice from other coaches and learn from other coaches, and learn new ways and what have you, which I think is a very good trait to have. And I think, as you can see in some of our athletes' performances, she's doing something right. But yeah, she's a really good coach, really good.
Yeah. Does she ever give you some advice, like from her experience of competing in sort of international events, of the sort of other side of it, not necessarily just the racing, but the mental side? Or is that not something that's really discussed?
No, that's something she discusses really well. Yeah, she likes to sort of talk you through not just the race, but the whole race day. How you prepare for it in the morning once you get up. Yeah, she sometimes tells us to write it out, what I'm going to do on a race day. So I've got everything planned. So I know what I've got to go through exactly. So yeah, she's really good at that, and obviously she's got such vast experience. It's such a high level that the stories she tells you and stuff like that. It's just really good to learn from, and just sort of use that experience yourself, and put it into your own racing and what have you. So yeah, it is really good to have her on board.
Yeah. And what do you make of Leeds as a base? Because I mean, I'm actually from York, so I'm not far away, but I'm a bit biased at this. But I think Leeds is probably the best British endurance city, in terms of just depth, and probably as a training venue as well.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. I mean, we've got obviously the track out there, and there's the new sports building, great facilities with the gym. Got the Brownie Centre to train on for tempos and stuff. It's great. There's the canal, and there's such a vast amount of training places you can go to for different things. Yeah, it's really good. And then the training group, there's always somebody you train with, whether you want someone for speed, whether you want someone for endurance. There's always someone there, to sort of accommodate whatever session you're looking to do. So yeah, it's a really good place to be. And as from like last summer and what have you with the Olympics, just the quality of athletes that are here, it's quite inspirational to be around as well. Like when I first came in to the uni, I mean, you were looking at athletes, Phil Sessman, Alex Bell, Laura Wayham and stuff like that, and it was quite weird to begin with, because I've came from just sort of training on my own at Wallsend to being in this sort of environment. It's very different, but yeah, it's a special place to train.
Do you think it helps a lot having that good group?
Yeah, definitely. Like beforehand, it Wallsend, I trained on my own, and to be fair, it worked, because I've always felt that I can push myself probably just as much on my own, so wasn't too much of a problem. But I think when you're training with a group and when you're all doing the same session and you're all sort of similar ability, it's just sort of sharing that load out of reps. It helps out so much, like mentally, because I mean, before I came to uni, I think if for example a 400 session, the most I would probably do was maybe 10, and now I've got up to 20 reps when I've been here. And to think of doing that on my own, that would be really tough. But you just share it out and you take maybe 4-5 reps each, and that's it. And it's like you just get dragged around the track, and it just makes training quite easy, to be honest, rather than it feeling like you have to slog it out and make it feel really tough. It's really good.
Yeah. And what sort of training do you do in terms of mileage, or are you? What's it?
Yeah. So before I came to uni, I was always on quite low mileage. So my volume was quite low, but the quality was always really high. So every session would be quite a hard session. So yeah, but now we've sort of obviously I know that as a 5K, 10K guy, I'm gonna have to up that mileage. Otherwise, you'll get to a stage where you're probably not going to be able to break through to that next level if you don't sort of get them miles. Like, so at the minute, I think I'm probably averaging around 50, 55 miles a week, and I think my highest 59, 59. I think it is. So it's still not too high, but the quality is there. And doing 3 sessions a week on a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So yeah, it's working well, but still sort of having to progress. Obviously, some of the lads here have been in this sort of environment a bit longer. So they're, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 miles ahead of me per week. But because of how low mileage I was on when I first came in, it would have been silly to then jump straight up to what they're doing. I sort of just had, I'm still slowly having to progress it. So yeah, but it's working really well. And yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're only 20 or 19, I don't know, are you 20?
20, yeah.
20, yeah. I mean, you're going to be running for the next 15 years, touch wood. So you got, yeah. Well, that's quite exciting that you're running. I'm not saying that mileage is everything, obviously, but
oh yeah, definitely not.
You must feel that you've got that ceiling's a bit, well, obviously a bit higher.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's what Helen keeps saying is there's some guys that are on very high mileage already at my age and don't really have many more places to go with their training. Whereas for example, if a lot of the 5K 10 guys in that peak, they're probably running 100 mile a week or around that. There's 40 more miles potentially that I've got to build upon in my training to get to that level. Whereas there's some guys, maybe my age, that are on 80, they've got that 10, 20 miles per week, where obviously that's not the be all and end all, but I've got a lot more places I can progress my training to while still being at a decent level already. So yeah, I think she's quite excited to see where she can take my training to, and of course I'm really excited for that as well, because I think that'll make a big difference as well.
And when you and Helen sort of talk about your plans, are you, like, how long term are you thinking? Because is it the next couple of years, or is it the next 5 years? Is it a process to maximize?
Yeah, I think it obviously there's, I think every athlete's got goals in the long term. But yeah, I think it's just at the minute it's just sort of taking each race as it comes, and yeah, it's just sort of thinking about each season at a time, really. I think it can be a bit dangerous to sort of get ahead of yourself and think about things too long term and focus on that. You just need to think about what's going on in the present and what you can do to progress here and now, rather than thinking about what's going to happen next year, because people's plans change all the time, and sometimes it can be pointless to think that far ahead, because it might not end up being that way, whether you get an injury or whatever. So yeah, I think you just need to take each week as it comes. But before I came to uni, Paddy would set as a training plan. So for example, if we're aiming for Liverpool Cross for the Euro trial, when I would start my block of training in September time, he would have a full 3-month plan written up until that race. Obviously, it would be tweaked and what have you along the way, but I would be able to see it for the whole 3 months ahead. Whereas now, Helen sets my session on my week ahead on a Sunday, and I don't see anything else ahead of that. So that was very different and something I get used to. But yeah, I think that it's good. It sort of just keeps your head on what you need to do here and now, rather than because I think some of the times I would look ahead and see a session that I've got in 3 weeks time, think, oh, I'm really looking forward to that one, but then not really paying as much attention on the ones that are going on in the week I was in. So yeah, I think it just gets you to focus a bit more on. I'm just working on what's happening in the present, really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, it's obviously working pretty well. The one thing that I did notice that I thought was quite interesting is you say that Great North run, that breakout performance. Well, you know, your first time where you thought I'm pretty good at this.
Yeah.
I think the person who won it was Josh Cow. I'm probably going to butcher the surname.
There
you go.
Yeah.
Thanks. But he won it, and then you fast forward to the back end of last year, and when you ran that 10K at the Abbey Dash, Josh was third on the all-time list, wasn't he? Or he was second before you ran that.
Yeah.
It's just quite fitting that you kind of he was the one that you overtook when you did. But how was that Leeds Abbey Dash run? Did that kind of shock you how fast you ran, or not really?
Yeah, I mean, no, it definitely did shock me a lot. I couldn't believe it when I crossed the line. So I'd never done a 10K before going into it. It was my debut run over the distance. And I knew my training had been going well. Obviously, it was still early on in the season. Obviously, I knew I did know what the record was, and I did have one eye sort of on it, but it was one of those where I was like, it's my first 10K. I don't know how it feels to run a 10K. There's all those sort of differences because it's so much further than any other distance I've ran before. And yeah, my main goal was just to go sub 30. That was what I wanted. I just wanted to break that barrier and then maybe set us up for another one in a few months' time or what have you. But then when I sort of got to 5K and I saw the clock on the lead car and it said 14:39, I was sort of doing the maths in my head, thinking I think I've overcooked this a bit. I've messed this race up. I've gone through too fast. But then I just kept building into the race, and everyone sort of told us before the race, you usually get to 7K and you'll get that bite and you'll really struggle at that point. And I got to that, and I was waiting for this bite to happen, and it never came. And I didn't really understand what was going on, to be honest, because I was like, this doesn't feel right. I just feel like I'm getting stronger and stronger. And obviously I'd looked at the start list. I'd looked on this when I was on the start line. I was looking around at some of the guys that were in there. I mean, there's Ross Millington, Olympian, George Mills. He's obviously a top runner. Omar Ahmed, all those sort of guys. And I was thinking, obviously Omar had ran off into the distance, but I was looking around in the pack I was in, thinking, this doesn't feel right, me being here. This is a bit strange. But then got to 8K and I ended up taking that sort of pack on myself and went to the front and ran away from them. And yeah, it was a really surreal feeling being in that sort of race, and beating some of the guys that were in there, because there's some real quality guys that were in that race, and then seeing the clock when I turned the corner for the finishing straight, and I think I was looking ahead to see what it was, and it was still in the 28s when I first turned the corner. I was like, this isn't right. I think the clock must be wrong. And I crossed the line and I'd seen it was 29:20 or around that. And yeah, I was having to double check that the time was right, and then I was double checking with people that the course was definitely the right distance, because obviously the year before it had been short, and yeah, it was a surreal day. So yeah, it was good.
Yeah. Do you train at all with Dave Niaki or?
So yeah, we do quite a lot of sessions together. Obviously, there's with lectures and what have you, and he's got a job now. Some sessions can be quite difficult to jump in together, but usually every Tuesday for a track session, we'll definitely do that together. yeah, like tempos on a Thursday, sometimes they can be a bit disjointed with the group, with lectures and stuff. And then on a Saturday we've done a grass session, but Dave's not a fan of the mud and the grass, so he doesn't do that. So we don't do a session then. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you look behind you and you've got at least 2 Olympians there: Rob Millington, Derek Hawkins.
Derek Hawkins, yeah, of course.
Yeah, I mean some run, but what I suppose you kind of indicated that you're building towards 5 and 10. Do you think those 2 are going to be your distances that you're going to sort of gear towards?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's always sort of been the distance that I was going to be best at. I think, like I think I've got decent speed. I've done the 152 for 800 a few years back, and I mean, I'm not very happy with my 15 time at the minute. I've had a few bad races in the past year, which I was a bit disappointed with. So I do feel that should be a bit faster. Obviously, I'm hoping to do that this summer. But yeah, I think even though it should be a bit faster, it's still not. It still wouldn't be the level where I can become a good 1500 guy. I don't quite have that speed to go and be a top level 1500 runner. So yeah, I think my endurance is there. I've obviously just got a decent range, but yeah, I think that sort of 5k distance, 10k will be the best that fits my sort of style, and yeah, I think that'll be the distance I end up doing.
Well, does that mean you're going to do a few 15s in the summer just to get that time down a bit? Or?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's always good to stay in touch with your speed. Yeah, especially while I'm still young. I think you've got to make sure you're keeping on top of that speed as well as working on your endurance. Because I think if you don't work on that speed when you're younger, you struggle to get it as you get older. So that's something I've always thought is quite important. So yeah, I'd like to do a few 1500s, but I think the main focus for this summer will be the 5000. I won't be doing a 10,000 on the track yet. I think that's still a few years off, but yeah, 5,000, 1500, and I'd quite like to get a 3,000 under my belt, because I haven't done one of them since 2019. I think my current PB is from. So yeah, I'd quite like to get that down a bit as well.
Yeah. What happens if you end up doing a 15 and you run 3:41? Would you reconsider, or always going to be fine?
No, to be honest, looking at the standard of the 1500s at the minute, I think if you want to be in of a chance of becoming one of those sort of top runners, you've got to be running 3:38, 3:37 potentially. So yeah, I definitely think I'll be best suited to the 5,000.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I will. I've just got one more thing to ask you generally on,
yeah.
And it's about the other day. You obviously ran the podium under the lights, and you ran 13:56, which I've had a look, and that's 2 seconds off the British record. Did you know that at the time? Or?
Well, yeah, I knew what the under 20 record was, but I didn't realise I was under 20 still. No one told us that. I was told that the under 20 cut-off for the road was 31st of December. So I've finished 2021 and gutted that I hadn't ran a 5k on the road, because then obviously after my 10k I thought I'll probably be close to that record. So I finished the race. I thought, oh, I've done a good time, ran sub 14, happy with that. It was then a week later, I was then told, or maybe 5-6 days later, I was then told, like, have you seen the rankings? I was like, no, what are you talking about? And they said, oh, you fared all time under 20. And I was sending Helen and Sam, my agent, messages saying, like, is this right? Like, have they got my age wrong on power return and stuff like that? And were having a look through the rule books and what have you, and found that it's right. It's if you're 17, 18 or 19 on August the 31st, then yes, you're still under 20, and I was 20 in October, so yeah.
Does that mean you've got till the end of August?
Yeah, I've just got till August still to try and get that record.
Yeah, you're not doing the. Are you planning on any 5Ks over the next few months? You're not doing that podium one.
Podium on the 12th of March. Yeah, so that's I mean, I think it would be silly not to be aiming for that. I'm only 2 seconds off. I think it's definitely within my reach. I mean, the Bucks was only 6 days before that race, and it took us probably 5 of them days to almost pull myself around, because that mud really drained my legs after that race. And I was getting a bit worried that week of how it was going to affect the 5K. So I was just having to do everything I could. I'm not very good at keeping on top of my stretching and stuff like that, but last week I was on it because I knew I had to. My easy runs were at 7:30s, where normally they're at 7 minutes. I was like, I've just got to do everything I can just to recover my legs. And to be honest, on the day, they felt good, but they didn't feel as good as I know they can do. And I think that was down to having that race still on my legs a bit. So I think that just gives us extra positives for this next race on the 12th of March at Podium. I just hope the conditions are good, and I mean it's Podium. There's always top athletes there to drag you around. So yeah, hopefully we can find that 2 seconds somehow. But yeah, it'll be a good race.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even sure that. I mean, Battersy's obviously quick, but in terms of if you look at the times compared against like the Barrowford Podium one,
yeah,
probably like a tiny bit slower as well. So if you're a bit fresher and you're running on that course,
yeah, it was a funny course, that Battersea one. I'm not too sure why. I don't know. Obviously, I know darkness doesn't change the way you run or anything like that, but I think there was that sort of hesitation where you couldn't actually see where you were running, what you were running on, because on the start line, we set off and about 100 meters in. Obviously, the pavement all around is perfect, but there was just a little dip in the pavement, and when you're running at that sort of speed, when we'd sort of drop down that sort of level, I think there's someone to my right, and I think it was Ocean Perrin. He nearly went down. And I sort of, my shin was really sore after the race, so I think I must have jolted it a bit, going down that sort of hole. But yeah, after that it was then sort of, you always a bit concerned in your head of where you were sort of stepping. And obviously I know that doesn't really change the pace you're running at, but I think it almost, it might make you feel a bit more tensed, potentially. And just those slight little differences can make a difference to your overall performance. So yeah, I think that the Barrowford one will probably be a slightly better course, with it being a cycle track and what have you. So yeah. Well,
and it's in the day as well, isn't it? Or...
I think it's a nighttime race, but they've got the lights on and what have you. So it's usually like pretty well lit, I think. I've never done a nighttime one at Barrowford before, but Chris Barnes has told us it's fantastic. So
do those races sort of get you going? Those fast road races, or?
Yeah, I've always loved running on the road. So when I first started at Wallsend, so we did a road session on a Tuesday. Whether that being hills or K reps or mile reps on the road, and then a track session on a Friday. But the Tuesday session, I just always used to love it. I don't know what it is. I think I just sort of get into a really good rhythm, and I can just sort of switch off and yeah, I just find the road quite easy to be honest. And yeah, I just really find it quite easy to do and just enjoy it. I think obviously on on cross, you've got different things to look at, but you're running through mud, which is what you have to focus on. On the track, you've got the psychological thing of just constantly doing laps and laps and laps. But then on the road, it's just like you run on easy surface. You're running different places, so you've always got different things to sort of to look at the end. Yeah, I think it's just the psychological side of it. I just find it a lot more easy on the road. But yeah, the track and cross are still great. But yeah, that's just what I've always been best at on the road.
Yeah, and sorry, just one last one real quick. The in terms of that going forward when you leave uni, is that have you thought about? I suppose you still got a couple of years to think about it, but have you thought about life with running post uni at all?
I think it's one of those things again where it's like sometimes you can plan ahead and things change. So it was just pointless even thinking about it. But yeah, I've got a great base here in Leeds. So at the minute I can see myself potentially staying on here. But yeah, definitely want to stay in this sort of environment, whether it's here or somewhere else in the country. I think just being around a base where you've got the gym, you've got the track, you've got good facilities, you've got a good group, you've got coaches around you. I think that just makes such a big difference. Whereas when I'm at home in Newcastle, I think you can find it quite hard, quite easy to procrastinate, and because you've got to travel to the gym, you've got to travel to the track and stuff like that, and you can just sort of put your run or your session off till later on the day until you're like, oh, I've got to do it now. Whereas when it's here, you can be in such a good routine. And everything's just on your doorstep, and there's always someone to run with, so it gets you out of the house at a certain time because you've organised it. And yeah, I think it just makes your training so much easier being in this sort of environment.
And you'd never go? Would you ever think about going to the US?
At the minute, no. So when I was first looking for unis, I'd had contact from a few different US universities. I went and visited Tulsa University. They practically forced me to come out. I was saying honestly, I don't think I'm going to come, and they were saying honestly, just please come out. We'll try and persuade you. Obviously, it's sort of all paid for when they get you to go out. So if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have gone. But yeah, I went out, had a look. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, the facilities there are incredible. They're just so much more vast than over here and what have you. And the landscape of the country is obviously amazing. But I'm very close to my family, and I think I would struggle being that far away from them where you can't just come back. Like obviously in Leeds, it's still 2 hours away, so it's not like I can just nip home whenever I want. I've obviously still got to travel for 2 hours back, but yeah, it's just so much easier. And I think I potentially would struggle, maybe be a bit homesick if I did go out there. But yeah, you never know. As I get older, it might be that I'm a bit more independent. I might feel like I can go out then and be all right in a different country, but at the minute I think I'm set on staying here. Training works, yeah. I just think it fits me best being in the UK.
Yeah, well, you basically you've got like a stripped down US college thing in Leeds anyway. So
yeah, definitely. And that's the thing. I think with the talent of, obviously this is only its second year of existence, I think that's only just going to expand and get better. Whether that's new facilities being created or just the whole environment in general, but I think we'll just continue to get better with the training group and stuff like that. And I think it's just a really good place to be here.
Yeah. Well, yeah, brilliant, Sam. Thanks a lot for your time, and yeah, best of luck on Saturday.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah,
I'm looking. I live in London. I'm looking outside. It's pretty wet, so hopefully it dries up a little bit.
God.
But,
Yeah. Oh well, thanks for that anyway. Nice to speak to you.
Yeah, same as well. I normally just use all the images from Mark Cookway. Just lets me use his images, but I might just. Well, I'll probably get enough because you'll race so many races that he's been taking pictures of. But
yeah. Aye, brilliant.
And I'll probably get it out in the next, probably start next week or something like that. But
yeah. Oh, brilliant.
Thanks
nice one.
Chatting,
Aye, thanks for that. Cheers,
Take
mate.
care, mate. Bye.